This is the third video in a 4-part series answering the question, what is Vision Forum? And in this one, I want to talk a little bit about the female, quote, leaders of Vision Forum. So refer to the other videos to get a little sense of what Vision Forum is. We are looking at it for this project because it's a piece of a historical overview of popular Christian parenting teaching. And I also think Vision Forum was kind of a proto-influencer group. It was before the era of social media, but they were leveraging those same approaches. They were one of the first groups to sell a pre-packaged aspirational ideal that was completely immersive. And they did this via merchandise, products, conferences, gatherings, toys, everything you can kind of imagine. And from within the community, kind of firsthand advocates who would get up and say, join me in this endeavor. So I think putting Vision Forum under the microscope is useful as a case study to understand dynamics. But here I want to talk about the leaders because we're examining the Christian parenting experts. So there were plenty of male experts in Vision Forum and their surrounding trajectory, but there were also women, which is an interesting dynamic when you consider the limits of patriarchy. Women were not to speak in these assembly, but there were women who were pedestaled, who were writing books, who were speaking at conferences, who were operating in a functional influencer role by saying, follow me. Here's my firsthand account, and here's how I run my family. Here's how you should run your family, and this is going to work out great for you, presenting a lot of these prosperity gospel parenting promises. This would have included Beale Phillips, I hope I'm saying her name correctly, the wife of Douglas Phillips, the founder. So you can see here, this is one of several audio series, and I'm presuming teaching that would have been given again and again at conferences about how to run your family. So experts setting up their, again, experience and family systems, what they've chosen to do as a family as normative and prescriptive for everyone. And you can see down to all kinds of different details. You also have Jenny Chauncey and Stacey McDonald. They show up several times, spouses, again, of male leaders who enjoyed influence and power in the community, writing books, giving conference talks, telling other women and young women what they need to do. Another one from Stacey McDonald. And this would have even passed on to the younger generation. We talked in the last video about how girls in their late teens or early 20s would have been encouraged to maybe hop up on a platform and exhort younger girls into the accepted ideology. So you have the Botkin sisters, whose father was a significant leader in the movement. They wrote this book, I believe, at age 17 and 19, and they went on to pen other resources and a blog, kind of encouraging women, young girls and women into the stay-at-home daughterhood ideals. Perhaps the best well-known product here would be Return of the Daughters, which was about an hour-long film. I'll link to it here. It's on Vimeo, where young women and their families were interviewed about their choice to pursue the stay-at-home daughterhood lifestyle. Here's the cover for that film. And, to my knowledge, the young women interviewed in the film moved on in different directions. This is some of what we were talking about in the last video, where this is an unsurprising result of young people raised with expectations of instant compliance, obedience in all things, submission to authority, told over and over again this was God's will for them. Then it's unsurprising that intelligent, articulate young women would take this avenue as the only avenue open to them and make what they can of it. And with Vision Forum, you also see a lot of overlap with other subcultures. At this video, and there's another one called Tea with Michelle Duggar. Michelle Duggar is presented an award, like Mother of the Year kind of award, from Beale Phillips, the wife of Doug Phillips, at this big tea. And at the tea, you also see Nancy Campbell of Above Rubies in the background, who for decades has kind of operated in this self-funded ministry of encouraging women into quiverful ideology and dominionism. So there's a lot of overlapping connections, which is, again, why I think Vision Forum is worth more attention than it gets. I think a lot of times it's kind of dismissed or it's memory hold, but these things were all interwoven and received collateral endorsements from communities of IBLP. The Duggars certainly lent credibility when they're at the peak of their fame. Above Rubies brings in international readers, and you have all these trusted authority sources endorsing one another in this dominionist way of life. Now, I think there are obvious benefits in any spiritual pyramid scheme for the people at the top, right? They enjoy financial income, they enjoy being well known, the power and authority in the system. I also think for women in these movements, this is the outlet offered for their intelligence and creativity. It's the sphere of domesticity. So I think that happens to scale. You know, in the individual home, all of that is being funneled into overseeing their home and the domestic sphere. And I think in the community level, it's happening via these outlets. This is the space where a woman who perhaps in another situation would be an author or a speaker or a leader, here, this is what is offered to her. And I think we see this in the current tradwife movement as well. There, something that could have been one of many outlets, domestic life can be one of many outlets for creativity and leisure and exploration and hobbies. But when it's the only avenue given to you, there can be a need to go all in on it. And Vision Forum really presented that as aspirational ideal in the same way tradwife influencers are doing today. And this also happened to scale for the leaders. So women who maybe would have been in a different environment, entrepreneurs or public speakers or teachers, found this avenue for their vocational work. But it's worth asking, as we do in this project, what were their credentials? Well, most of them were simply married to leaders who were influential. And as we see again and again with popular Christian parenting resources, everyone's entitled to their opinion and the way we might share advice with our friends. But that really deflates everything down from someone standing up there and saying, I'm about to tell you God's way. I'm about to make my experience normative for everyone. We also see in these communities kind of a nepotism where the adult children who kind of remained compliant, as well as maybe extended family buy-in, they enjoy privileged positions. And we see this in, I'm about to spotlight Canon Press and Douglas Wilson during this month of November. And there's actually a connection there as well. Douglas Wilson and Douglas Phillips had connections that go back for decades, and they sold one another's products. And I'm not sure, I'm looking into whether they were ever sharing a platform together, but they certainly have different connections. Bodhi, who was constantly platformed in Vision Forum, is now enjoying platforms alongside Douglas Wilson. So there's so many overlapping historical connections, but you see Douglas Wilson's family enjoying so many platforms. Both his daughters have written books, they do podcasts, they now have video series on home decoration and on parenting. His son is producing a lot of the content for like novels and children's books. And again, the question being, what are the credentials? And they're simply not there, because enjoying that position of privilege does not qualify someone to tell everyone else what God wants them to do. And then finally, I want to point viewers to Tia Levings on Instagram, TikTok, and Substack. She came out of similar movements of hyper-patriarchy and speaks so insightfully to what it is like for women to be both victims and victimizers in these subcultures, and the ways that female participation props up hyper patriarchy in conservative Christianity. So definitely check out her stuff.